Murderer Fluttershy, true story. Note: this is a real story that happened to me and I will be accounting the events as they did occur. I will have been changed some of the names of real people to protect their identities. It all started on a stormy night. In the year 2012, I was 13 years old, and I was a brony. Nobody at the school knew about it but my friend Brandon, fake name, who was also my next door neighbor. I was careful who I told about it because my dad and older brother always made fun of me for watching such a girly show. But not my mom because she's cool. Anyway, this was all happening as season 2 of the show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic was airing on the Hub TV channel, and the last episode to come out was the one where Pinkie Pie tries to make friends with Cranky Doodle the donkey, which I thought was a good episode and I was looking forward to the next one. So it was a stormy night and I was watching MLP, My Little Pony, on the Hub network in the living room. Our TV wasn't really big but it was nice, and it was a rerun of some season 1 episodes. I was having a good time and my friend Brandon, who was my neighbor, was also there. The two of us were having fun watching the show when my brother walked by and said, "Do you two really like this show? It is made for little girls, you know." I didn't like that he was making fun of us, but I didn't want to say anything, but Brandon got mad and stood up and said, "If you laugh at me, I wrath at you." And he got up right in my brother's face and he got really scared and left. I looked at Brandon and said, "Wow, why are you acting so tough?" And he said, "I wanted to act more assertive like Fluttershy did in the new episode and it's been helping me a lot." And I said, "What do you mean new episode?" And Brandon went over to his backpack and pulled out a DVD with the words, My Little Pony, written on it in red Sharpie. Then he said, "This is the new episode that came out the other day. I think it was called, Putting Your Hoof Down, and I recorded it because I record every episode." Then he handed the DVD to me and said, "Do you want to watch it?" I said yes, and the two of us set up the DVD player. It was hard because all the cords were tangled up, and eventually we got the DVD player set up and Brandon put the disc in. The episode started like normal, with Fluttershy feeding her animals. Then she argues with Angel Bunny and tries to get him to eat, but instead he slaps her. And everything seems fine, but I notice that it seems like she is bleeding slightly from the slap, but I don't think too much of it at the time. The rest of the episode goes on like normal with the scene in the market, but when she gets home and Angel throws her outside crashing into the mailbox, she starts bleeding from the splinters and blood looks out of place for the show and very real. But the blood is all gone in the next scene and Brandon didn't say anything, so I assumed it must just be my eyes playing tricks on me. For now. When Fluttershy arrives at Iron Will's speech, things are normal for a while and she goes up on stage like normal. But instead of yelling the "Get the goat to move," she gets angry and punches him. And his nose starts bleeding and he falls over. Brandon seems like he is really into the show, so I think maybe it's just a weird episode and I keep watching. Everything else is normal up until the point where Pinkie Pie and Rarity confront Fluttershy about how she is acting. After Fluttershy is done yelling at Pinkie, she throws a punch at her and there is a horrible crunching sound like bones breaking and Pinkie falls to the ground. And on the ground all around her there is a pool of hyper-realistic blood and Pinkie's neck is twisted around as though her neck had been snapped. And then the screen starts to shake and warp with weird TV static, and the last thing I heard is Rarity saying, "You're a monster." But it's all distorted and weird, and then the screen fades to black. Then Brandon looks at me and says, "Wasn't that a really cool episodes?" And I look back at him and say, "What the fuck?" Because I don't get what the hell was going on. Maybe Brandon is playing some weird joke on me. But the episode looked really legit and I'm not sure what that was supposed to be. I said, "Brandon, what was that? There's no way that was a real episode." And he says, "It's real, I saw it airing on TV and that's where I recorded it from after all." I'm not really sure what to make of it, but it's just a show, so I forget about it pretty fast, and then me and Brandon decide to play Mario Kart for a while before he eventually has to go home and I go to bed. But I can't stop thinking about that My Little Pony episode that he had. It was so weird that it keeps me up for a while, but I eventually go to sleep anyway. The next day I wake up like normal and go to school, and things are normal and boring like they always are. Eventually I meet up with Brandon in between classes and he asks me, "Hey Mike, that is my fake name. I think I left my Little Pony DVD over at your house yesterday." But he said it too loud and a kid named Connor who always bullies us walked by and said, "My Little Pony. Did you guys really watch such a girly show?" And he started laughing at us, but Brandon looked at him and balled his fist because he was so angry and said, "You're making me mad." And he punched Connor right in the balls. Connor fell over and was almost crying. Then Brandon said that we should run before a teacher sees us, and we ran back to our classes. The school day ended and we didn't see Connor again or any teachers who were angry at us, so I think that Connor must have been really embarrassed to get punched in the balls, so he decided not to tell anyone, but I was feeling nervous about it all day. And when we got back home off the bus, Brandon tells me to bring the DVD back to his house and then we can play some video games on his Xbox. Brandon had an Xbox but I only had a Wii, so I agree and go home and get the DVD, but when I take it out of the DVD player it looks weird. The red Sharpie is running down the DVD, giving the words a really creepy look to them, but I think maybe it's just melting. Anyway, after I get to Brandon's parents' house I talk to Brandon and we play Halo, which I'm really bad at because I don't have an Xbox. After a while Brandon's mom makes dinner and I eat with them, and it's pretty good because Brandon's mom would always make store-bought food like mac and cheese. And after dinner Brandon takes me in the backyard and shows me something that he hid in a birdhouse in the tree there. It's a knife. And he says, "Isn't this cool? I found it in my dad's stuff in the garage and put it here so nobody else can take it." And I agree, it is pretty cool and looks really sharp, like something a character in COD Call of Duty might use. Anyway, Brandon puts the knife back in the birdhouse and we go play video games for a while. Eventually it gets late and I call my mom to ask if I can sleep over at Brandon's parents' house and she says yes. So we play video games all night, and then before we go to bed I say, "Oh right, I forgot to give you your My Little Pony DVD back," and I give Brandon the DVD back. He puts it on his side table before bed and then we go to sleep. Night. Things are normal, but during the night I get woken up by a weird slamming sound and get up to look around. Brandon is still sleeping, but then I see some weird red marks on the floor. I follow them and they lead to the DVD on Brandon's table. The DVD isn't there anymore and there's just a big red spot where it was. I wake Brandon up and he just thinks I'm playing a joke on him and wants to go back to sleep, but I tell him that I heard a weird noise and he agrees to check it out with me. The two of us don't want to wake up Brandon's parents, so we're really quiet and don't talk at all while we look around the house. We find weird red marks all over the house but can't figure out where they are coming from. Eventually we get to the kitchen where there is a big glass sliding door going into the backyard and we can see really well because the moon is so bright. At first we don't see anything weird, but things get dark for a minute while a cloud moves in front of the moon, and then when we can see again there is a shape in the backyard. I can't see very well because it is night time, but I swear the shadow in the backyard looks like a Pegasus pony from MLP. I don't know what to do, but Brandon opens the door and goes into the backyard. I'm scared but I follow him because he's my friend. We go into the backyard and get closer to the shadow figure and can't see what it is exactly, but there is a reflection coming from its mouth, and when I get close enough I can see that it is Fluttershy. And her face is covered in blood and in her mouth she's holding the knife that Brandon showed me earlier. All around her field there are animals like squirrels and birds that she had sliced open with the knife, and she looks really scary, covered in blood. Then she smiles at us and says, "When you see a bully, make them bleed. Right, Brandon and Mike?" And she knows our names. I wanted to scream but I couldn't, and me and Brandon just stood there as fear while she walked closer and closer to us. I feel like I'm about to die and I turn around and run back into the house, and from behind me I hear a stabbing noise and Brandon yelling. I don't turn around and I run through the living room and try to get out the front door, but it's locked. And I turn around and I can see Fluttershy with the knife covered in blood getting closer and closer. And I want to yell for help but I can't, and she gets really close to me and smiles while she raises the knife. Bam! I looked and there was blood coming out of Fluttershy and she steps back while bleeding. Over on the stairs there is Brandon's dad holding a gun that he just shot Fluttershy with, and he tells me to get out of here. So I manage to get the door open and run into the street back to my parents' house. I get there and wake up my mom and tell her what happened, and she calls the police. The next day was really weird because they never found Fluttershy's body, even though Brandon's dad tells the police what happened. Brandon was stabbed in the backyard and died, and I told the police what happened, and apparently Brandon's dad got arrested because the police think he killed him. I tried to tell the police, but I got sent to therapy, and they tried to tell me I imagined the whole thing, but I never stopped knowing what I saw that night. And I learned a lot of things about the night, and they never found the DVD Brandon showed me that one night, even though they looked everywhere for it. And I watched every version of that episode one could find, but I never did find out the one where Fluttershy killed Pinky. If anyone ever finds a blank DVD with the words, "My Little Pony," written on it, red Sharpie running down the DVD like it's bleeding, I swear don't play it. Or you might end up like my friend Brandon, not his real name.